Hey guys, here we are in the garage of GT7 where we're going to learn about the history of cars. As you can see, we have a variety of manufacturers from 1971 all the way up to 1988. And if you haven't seen part 1, you can check that out where I reviewed a dozen cars and learned about the history from 1945 to 1970. So this is part 2, and we're going to start by checking out the first car here, which is the Ferrari 365 GTB4, which has 347 horsepower and weighs 2,646 pounds. Now the way we're going to learn about these cars is we're going to head over to the GT Cafe, and there's always like some car enthusiasts here who are able to tell us a little bit about the cars with some anecdotes. So we got Fabio Filippini here to tell us about this car. He says, known as the Daytona, it is the epitome of the front-engine prancing horse GT, and probably that of the entire Gran Turismo category as well. The car is designed by Pininfarina. It has a very clean and incisive style. It is based on extreme proportions with a huge sloping hood and a setback cockpit ending in a compact cam tail. Some styling elements are particularly iconic, such as the plexiglass headlights of the first versions. The term camtail is often thrown around in car design. Do you know what it means? It's where the rear of the body appears to abruptly cut off. Much like streamlined designs, they're known to have excellent aerodynamics. Dr. Wunibald Kamm, the person who came up with this, was a professor at the University of Stuttgart in the 1930s. Therein lies the reason why this particular design is called the camtail. We also refer to it as coda trunca in Italian. The plexiglass headlights on the early models and design elements such as the orange indicator lights that extend on the side are defining symbols of this car. Also, the grooves that flow in a straight line on the side of the car are implemented on most Ferraris that followed this car. The star-shaped 5-spoke aluminum wheels are also important symbols of Ferrari's design. Yes, the wheel originated from a sports prototype car from the 1960s and was first used in the Daytona. So yeah, that's a pretty cool history about this car. I've never actually heard of the camtail before, and also the plexiglass headlights. Those are really interesting innovations for this car. I wouldn't have thought about that before. I mean, it definitely has a unique shaped back of the car, but the way that it just abruptly ends, I feel like that is something you hadn't really seen on many cars, and at least previous to this one. So let's check out another car from 1971. The next one we'll check out is the Ferrari Dino 246 GT. Has 191 horsepower and weighs 2,381 pounds. I feel like this is a very similarly shaped car to the previous Ferrari, and I guess that makes sense, just made in the same year. Let's see what's different about it. Here's Fabio to tell us. He says the little Berlinetta, known as the Dino 206/246 GT, is certainly one of the most beautiful cars ever. It is a true masterpiece derived from the 1965 prototype Dino Berlinetta Speciale. The lightweight nature and elegant form flawlessly blends with its sportiness. There is no brutality of expression. There is an almost feminine beauty typical of many Pininfarina works. The sinuosity and purity of shapes which seems to brush the frame and the wheels, starting from the sharp and expressive front to the sleek truncated tail. Some elements are very iconic, like the side air inlets that will appear on the Ferrari 308 and concave rear window that lightens the rear buttresses. To this day, it remains among the best expressions of timeless beauty and elegance in automotive history. Yeah, just looking at the shape of the car here, I can definitely see just the way that it is so expressive. And those air inlets that it was talking about, just along the side, I feel like those are really really unique ways to approach the side of the car there. So let's check the next car out. I do also think that just looking at the back of the car, the way that it slopes down immediately, and then, oh, I guess what's going away from there, but I think that's a bit different than the 365 over here, as you can see. Anyways, the next car we're going to check out is the Ford Mustang Mach 1. An awesome engine noise there. We got a 302 horsepower and weighs 3,560 pounds. Definitely a different type of car than the Ferraris we've seen before. This seems like much more of a muscle car, so I'm assuming it's not as focused on beauty or elegance. Let's see what Chris has to say. The Mustang Mach 1 is one of America's most historic sports cars. Its distinctive sports roof fastback body style would prove to have a major impact on future sports car design. A legendary presence in the history of the pony car, this Mustang offers much more than its price may suggest. Oh, wow, that was pretty short, actually, but yeah, that fastback, I think like the sports roof, whatever the term was, I definitely feel like just the whole shape of the car in general is just like that is what I associate with the muscle car. So, yeah, I don't really necessarily know if I describe it as the roof shape rather than like the whole car shape, but it's distinctive for sure. Next car we're gonna check out is the Nissan Fairlady 240 ZG. Has 147 horsepower and weighs 2,227 pounds. A lot of what you saw, like the wooden gear shifter there and the wooden steering wheel, so I like all those touches on the inside. Let's see what we can learn about the car here. So we got another story from Jeremy here. Jeremy says, what happened in June 1972 is pretty unusual by anyone's standards. It was the second race of the popular Fuji Grand Champion Series, which took place in the Fuji International Speedway. And despite being up against Group 6 and Group 7 race cars, a lower-level machine based on a production model managed to emerge victorious. The car is a Fairlady 240 ZG and its driver was Japan's Haruo Yamagata. The race took place in heavy rain and the 240 ZG performed exceptionally against its higher-ranked rivals. And yes indeed, it beat all the other entries. The event became known in Japan as the Z in the Rain race and remains one of the most legendary moments in motorsports. Oh, that's really cool, the way that a car is able to define a race by winning it. I think that's not only something that's cool to learn, but also the Group 6 and Group 7 cars. I've never heard of any cars with those terms before. I've obviously heard of Group 3 and Group 4s, like, I guess like those race cars, but Group 6 and 7 must be a lot slower, so I wonder if they have different terms nowadays. Next car we're going to check out is the Alpine A110 from 1972. Has 138 horsepower and weighs 1,576 pounds. I really like the blue shade, or the blue color on this car. It's really iconic. I feel it would go well on any car, to be honest. And we got something from Jeremy and Shiro here. Jeremy says, are you familiar with the WRC? Assuming that's the World Rally Championship. It stands for, yes I am right, it stands for the World Rally Championship and features rally races that take place on a variety of road surfaces. It was formed in 1973 when rally championships held in various countries were unified. The new international race series was christened the World Rally Championship and the rest is history. This is the Alpine A110, the winner of the very first WRC series. Its compact body with an 1800cc engine mounted at the rear, ensuring excellent traction. The A110 won the first race in the 1973 season held in Monte Carlo. In fact, Alpine A110 took all 3 podium places, defeating entries from Porsche and Lancia. The car now occupies a page in the history books as the car that won the first WRC race and series. Wow, that's cool to know. Let's see if we have any more information from Shiro. Shiro says, the tight cabin and the position of the rear engine is stunning. Specifically, the face is nice. The press line that separates the center molding from right to left. This type of design has a stylish feel that is very French in nature. But then it has large fog lamps for rallying, and air scoops at the rear have been flawlessly incorporated. These details suggest that it's a competition vehicle really give its exquisite character. In terms of design, there are places where the balance is not good, but when seeing the car up close, you don't mind at all. In fact, it's those things that give this car visual impact. This type of visual allure you can't achieve in today's cars. This car is a true masterpiece, one that I would love to add to my collection. Wow, that's really cool. I was always wondering what distinguishes certain design from others, and I saw like that centerpiece down the hood, the way that it separated the left and right sides. The fact they described that as like a French design is really unique. And also, like, when it described how it won the WRC, the first thing that came to mind was those fog lamps everywhere. I feel like you see those in all rally cars nowadays, so it definitely is a unique way to shape the front of the car. The next car we're going to check out is the famous Lancia Stratos. The shape of this car is just, I feel like it it makes you look at it, just the way it's like, it's so square, but it's square in a good way, I guess. I don't even know. I'm curious to see what like, people have to say about it. It has 185 horsepower and weighs 2,161 pounds. I think I like how it's like so pointy in areas, but it's also like sloped rearwards as well. So I think that aspect of it is just so acutely angled, I guess. So we have something from Jeremy here. It says the Stratos, designed by Marcello Gandini, was created to accomplish just one goal. And what was that, you ask? To win rally races. Legend has it that the car was a handful to drive owing to its short wheelbase. In fact, only a handful of drivers could ever really master it. One of them was the legendary rally driver Sandro Minari. He controlled the Stratos like it was a part of his body. His view on the matter was, if you find driving this car difficult, then your skills just aren't good enough. That's a great quote right there. A car that expresses this much strength and beauty in its appearance is quite revolutionary in the history of car design. It's a design that you simply cannot imitate. It's a design that goes beyond something that's simply beautiful. That's what I find most alluring. It possesses both a futuristic design theme, a signature element of Gandini's, and styling that truly is car-like. The Stratos is a car that is defined by both. By the way, do I know who Gandini is? I do not. He's a legendary car designer from Italy, Marcello Gandini. He was the chief designer for Carrozzeria. I'm not going to even try to pronounce that, Vertone. He had a hand in the design of cars such as the Countach and Stratos, and is known all around the world. I'm totally taken with the wraparound cabin and the flawless balance of the low body. From just its presence, you can almost hear the car's exhaust note, right? I've seen Gandini's original sketch of the car, which, while the design theme is the same, I was surprised in the difference of the ambience. In fact, car design is something that can't be accomplished by just one person. The collaboration of engineers who are themselves craftsmen and modelers is essential. In those terms, I think it's correct in saying that the Stratos is Bertone designed. I would seriously love to add this car to my collection, but it's become too expensive. But yeah, I think it's really cool to say that a car definitely isn't designed by one person, but like everyone involved in it, I guess, because I guess just the logistics of everyone working together on the car is going to shape it in that way. So, yeah, this is definitely a very unique just description of the car. Next car I'm going to check out, going a few years later, up to 1975, is the Ferrari 308 GTB. Has 251 horsepower and weighs 2,403 pounds. Yeah, just still going back to that Stratos, the way that it was designed just to win races, and it was like, if you can't drive this car, you're just not good enough at driving. That's I just love that quote. That's so cool. Anyways, here's Fabio to tell us about the Ferrari 308. The 308 can be considered the progenitor of all modern 8-cylinder Ferraris and the most popular of them all, and perhaps it was also the longest lasting. Its production run spanned from 1975 to 1989, including the derivative version, the 328. Besides its technical aspects, the car's success came from an extremely balanced and pure design. It's almost timeless. It serves as a perfect example of Pininfarina's design philosophy applied to the cars of the Cavallino. In fact, it takes up some classical themes from the Dino 246, such as the progressive wave on the two-wheel arches and the iconic side air intake, but also the dynamic rear pillars, and of course the truncated tail with the 4 round taillights. However, all of it was transformed into a very essential and modern shaping for the time. Yeah, I feel like those four round brake lights and those like diagonal rear bars, I described it as that, but I feel like that is definitely something that we could see connected to the 246 Dino, just that similarity in like that rear design. Yeah, just looking at them here, I feel like just looking at the back of the car, I really see that similarity. The front, definitely a different approach, but the rear has that similarity. So just past halfway here, just 5 more cars to check out, but I feel like I've definitely learned a lot so far about these cars, and definitely a lot more to go. Next car we're going to check out, the 1980 Renault R5 Turbo. has 159 horsepower and weighs 2,138 pounds. And wow, that is. Look at that steering wheel. Look at the way it has. Normally you have like the, I don't know, those cross beams in the steering wheel like at a 9 and 3. This one it was like at the 6 and 3. That was a very odd shaped wheel, or the odd designed wheel. Got something from Jeremy in Kaguzareka, or some, I messed up that, Kagurazaka, there we go. Jeremy says Renault is a company that loves to compete. It has been involved in many forms of motorsport, including Formula 1. It was also formidable in the rallying world alongside cars such as the Gordini and the Alpine from the 70s. The 1980s, though, the company was all about this R5 Turbo. One of its early drivers, Jean Ranotti, mentioned that the car suffered from terrible handling. He also confessed that misjudgments on narrow roads would always cause the rear of the car to hit objects. This is because the rear of the R5 Turbo was wider than the front. It's amusing to hear seasoned pros complain about aspects of the car they don't like. But yeah, just looking at the car, I feel like right behind or right in front of the rear, like where those radiator, I guess, jut out, that's where the car really starts to get wider. But it doesn't look like a wide car in general, though. Oh boy, this is just crazy. That 5 I love so much. What happened? Just because I wanted to go faster in rallies, I didn't have to sell its soul to the devil. It has become 7.9 inches wider, and if you look at it from the rear, it looks like a laughing Cheshire cat. That's a cool description. And because the engine is mounted at the rear, it only seats 2 now. But wait. Upon closer examination, aside from the bulging fenders and bumpers, oh my, much of the original 5 is still there as is. Aside from the cheeks, the car has a gentle face, which means it's more Clark Kent than the Hulk. I mean, what kind of magic is this? The interior of the Turbo 1 features a super modern Mario Bellini design. The thing that would be stylish even in Paris. Oh my, I think I've fallen in love with this crazy 5. Somebody, anybody, give me some of this magic on my own 5. I love that description of the Cheshire cat in the rear. But wow, people really complaining about, a lot of times they talk about the design of the car, but this was like, I guess less of the design, but almost like the shape or the distribution. And the fact they were talking about the handling of the car always upset in the rear, and yet this was almost something that seemed to dominate the 80s. That's very odd. It seems like they, it seems like the approach didn't work, yet it seemed he was successful. It seems like it's just like a really weird, I don't know, very weird contradiction, I guess. The next car we're going to look at is the Porsche 911 Turbo from 1981 with 295 horsepower and it weighs 2,866 pounds. Heading over to the cafe here. See, we have Chris to describe this car to us. This car taught the world the true meaning of turbo. Even today it is often referred to as simply turbo. Porsche poured all of its engineering expertise into the turbocharger that powered this Type 930 911. Compared to the 1978 model, this flat 6 engine had more displacement at 3.3 liters and an output of 295.9 horsepower. Because the 911 is a rear-engine car, more load is placed in the rear tires, giving it superior traction. Add to this a turbocharger and you've got a machine that can really get up and go. The 930 holds its own among many Porsche's many masterpieces and belongs in every enthusiast's collection. Yeah, I just really like the shape of that rear spoiler. I'm almost... I'm curious how much horsepower the turbo actually added to this car before it got up to that 295.9. Since, I mean, I feel nowadays that's not too much for a Porsche, but I guess back in 1981, that was a big jump. Next car we're going to check out is the 1983 Toyota Corolla 11 with 127 horsepower and weighs 2,072 pounds. Now that that just yells 80s, that dash, doesn't it? All those like man, it just looks like the initialization of like digital and everything like that. I just feel like the whole shape of the car though, it's like this ugly boxiness with all the other stuff we've seen so far. I feel like this car definitely isn't as pretty. Chris says, let's have a closer look. The main value of the AE86 is in its driving characteristics. It's a very controllable rear-wheel drive coupe. Just driving it brings people joy. In the famous Japanese comic Initial D, the Treno is the hero car. but actually many people prefer its sister car, the Levin. The reason for that is the weight. The Levin with fixed headlights is actually 11 pounds lighter than the Treno. An extra 11 pounds on the nose of this car this light can make a pretty big difference. Yeah, since the Treno and the Corolla 11, I mean, I guess they look quite similar, and I definitely do know about Initial D, so I enjoy that. So I feel like that's what made this, not this car, but I guess the Treno's super famous, just with like drifting. Okay, final two cars we're going to check out. We're going to start with the Audi Sports Quattro Pikes Peak with 759 horsepower, weighing a slight... Oh man, listen to that engine, man. That is beautiful. I could listen to that all day. Weighs 2,200 pounds, and the fact that Pikes Peak's in its name, I guess we already know what this was designed for. So we got Jeremy to describe this car to us. This Pikes Peak hill climb in Colorado, USA is a time trial where cars race up a treacherous road to the top of a mountain peak. The track measures 12.4 miles, climbing 4,921.2 feet to the finish at 14,110 feet, which is higher than Mount Fuji in Japan. The Audi S1 dominated the competition when it won the event in 1985, 86, and 87. Based in a WRC machine, it featured large wings at the front and rear, ensuring maximum downforce. Do you know the driver that brought home the final championship in the Race to the Clouds? Why, it was none other than WRC's champion Walter Roll. I hope I pronounced that name correctly, but yeah, I never actually knew who drove this car as a WRC championship, so it definitely is I mean, if I was to drive any Group B car in real life, this would be the one I'd love to choose. It's just the engine noise, and I feel like from what we've seen in the progression, like the last 3 decades, I feel like this just seems like so much ahead of its time. And finally, I'm gonna check out the Nissan Silvia S13 from 1988. Has 132 horsepower and weighs 2,403 pounds. And if we can just wait till we get back to a view of the car from the exterior. Let's see if we can wait a little bit longer. Just like this, it looks so bland from the inside. It just looks like a nice everyday car. Some nice seats. And again, yeah, those rims. I feel like I feel like they could have chosen sportier rims. It feels like a rental car type rim, but I feel like I enjoy it in its blandness. I don't know. It could just be me. Chris says, combining a light compact body with a responsive rear-wheel drive chassis and a peppy 1.8-liter inline-4 engine is the S13 Silvia, one of the most popular FR Japanese sports cars ever. Not only was it elegantly styled, it was one of the best handling machines around. Today, the popularity of these cars has not waned. In fact, some consider the S13 to be priceless. I wish I was one that could think it's priceless, but I don't get it. I just feel like maybe pop culture has made like Initial D and certain Japanese cars more popular than others, and I just feel like this one hasn't exactly reached that level. Maybe if I was from Japan I would understand it a bit more, but yeah, just looking at some of these shots here, just with that nose. Yeah, I might need a bit of a history lesson to understand this car more and like why it's so significant in car history, but I definitely enjoyed a lot of the history about all these cars, and I especially enjoyed learning about how much people hated driving the R5 Turbo and how they described the back of it to look like a Cheshire cat. I think that was probably the coolest fact I learned from listening to all those stories. But let me know what you guys enjoyed about learning about the history of all these cars, and I'll if you enjoyed, I'll make sure to make a part 3 about some cars a bit later from these, maybe like starting in the early 90s to 2000s. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.